We are conditioned from birth to believe that patience is the ultimate virtue, especially when it comes to family. But what if I told you that sometimes the only way to find peace is to disrupt the order entirely? They say the older brother is a protector, a guide, or at the very least a somewhat annoying roommate, yet for nearly 2 decades, my reality was a sequence of 90-degree Florida humidity mixed with the cold chill of being someone's favorite punching bag. We tend to think that time eventually heals the wounds of childhood bullying, but time doesn't do the work you do. Most people assume that once you reach a certain age, the power dynamics of a household are set in stone like a Midwest winter morning that refuses to thaw, but they are wrong. Some people notice that true liberation doesn't come from a quiet apology or a realization of maturity. It comes from the exact second you decide that your physical and mental space is no longer a public park for someone else's aggression. Research suggests that the psychological weight of being bullied by a sibling can be more heavy than many outdoor social pressures, yet we rarely discuss the moment the shackles actually fall off. Today, we are talking about the specific, raw, and terrifyingly beautiful moment a 17-year-old finally stands taller than the shadow that has followed him for 24 years, proving that the chains we think are made of iron are often just made of our own hesitation. Imagine living 17 years in a house where the air feels like it is constantly 105 degrees Fahrenheit even when the AC is blasting at 60. That was my life with my brother, a man 7 years my senior who treated our relationship like a low-tier combat sport where only he was allowed to throw strikes. For as long as I can remember, I was the one who lost. I was the one who stayed silent while he utilized the difference in our size and age to keep me pinned under a thumb of constant abuse and bullying. Even as we grew older and the frequency of the physical altercations slowed down over the last 2 years, the underlying tension remained as thick as the humidity in a Georgia swamp. I fought back, sure, but I never won. I was always the smaller one, the younger one, the one who was supposed to just take it because that's what brothers do. The bullying was a constant, underlying frequency in my life, a background noise that suggested I was less than, that I was weak, and that I would never be able to hold my own against the one person who should have been my strongest ally. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry, this was about a power dynamic that felt impossible to break, a set of shackles that had been locked around my ankles before I even knew how to walk properly, making every step in my own home feel heavy and restricted. There is a fascinating phenomenon in human psychology regarding the perception of size and threat. Some research suggests that when we are conditioned to fear someone from a young age, our brains often fail to update our internal map of the world as our bodies change. At 17, I had grown. I was actually taller and heavier than my 24-year-old brother, but in my mind he was still the giant, and I was still the runt of the litter. He relied on this mental lag. He stayed deluded in the idea that he would always be the victor because he had always been the victor. Bullying behavior often stems from a need to maintain a hierarchy that the bully feels slipping away. Some people notice that when a bully senses their victim is becoming an equal, or in my case, a physical superior, their aggression often spikes as a desperate last effort to reassert dominance. They don't see the person standing in front of them. They see the shadow of the child they used to control. This psychological dissonance is dangerous, and it often leads to a breaking point where the physical reality of the present clashes violently with the outdated memory of the past. The dynamic is like a dam holding back years of resentment. Once it cracks, the pressure doesn't just leak. It explodes with the force of every ignored insult and every unreturned blow from a decade of silence. The explosion happened on an ordinary morning over a bowl of breakfast. It was trivial, like the line at a busy Whole Foods on a Sunday, a dispute over a phone password. He wanted our mom's password, I didn't know it, and his frustration boiled over into a physical kick to my head while I was just trying to eat. The impact bashed my head against the wall, but curiously, the pain didn't register. Instead, something else did. The shackles didn't just rattle, they disintegrated. I got up, fueled by a decade of repressed anger, and I didn't hold back. I threw a barrage of punches that were years in the making, targeting the face, the head, the source of the intimidation. When we hit the ground, I didn't hesitate. I pulled a guillotine choke, holding him in place because the fear of him getting the upper hand was still there, lurking in the back of my mind. It only lasted seconds before my mom intervened, but in those seconds the world shifted. He was gasping for air, the delusion of his superiority vanishing with every breath he couldn't quite catch. Even though he threatened me afterwards, saying I would see what happens, the fear had no teeth. I took his bike and rode to my dad's workplace to tell the story first, to ensure the truth wasn't twisted by a bully's narrative. As I pedaled, something incredible happened. The sky looked vibrant. The surroundings, which I had seen 1,000 times, looked stunningly beautiful. It was as if a filter had been removed from my eyes. Research suggests that a sudden release from a long-term stressor can lead to a state of euphoria or heightened sensory perception, and that is exactly what I felt. I wasn't just riding a bike, I was flying away from a version of myself that no longer existed. If you are feeling weighed down by the expectations or the shadows of others, remember that the world may look different once you stand in your own light. Some people notice that once they set a firm boundary, the beauty of life finally starts to show itself clearly. Since that day, he has stopped talking to me, and the silence is the loudest victory I have ever heard. Life has always been this beautiful. I just finally broke the shackles to see it. What shackles are you ready to break today? Check out our links to learn more about finding your own voice.